theyeshiva.net.
Page 132. The second column, close to the end of the Maimer, the line starts b'Shabbos. The line starts v'achar kol zeh muven inyan shtei halechem sheb'Shabbos. V'achar kol zeh, after all of this, and the word kol zeh is important, after all of this, in other words, after discussing and explaining and elaborating on all of the aspects that have been discovered and explored, analyzed in this particular Maimer Lehavin Einyan Lechem Mishneh, after all of this means the nature of benching, the two brachas, the nature of lechem in haaretz, the nature of lechem in hashamayim, the man and Moshe, the nature of toyu, tikkun, and akudim, the concept of the first two blessings of Birchas Hamazon and the differences between them, including the difference between bracha and hoidah, and then finally the concept of Shabbos, and the reason that the man would not come down on Shabbos. So you have lechem in the aretz, and then in the midbar you have lechem in hashamayim, which is the man, which comes down every single day. On Friday you have a double portion for Shabbos, but it's not ultimately on Shabbos. You have to collect Erev Shabbos for Shabbos. So therefore, the man itself will not come down on Shabbos, because Shabbos is not the man. Shabbos is deeper than the man. But the man will come down for Shabbos. So you have lechem in haaretz, lechem in hashamayim, and then you have the concept of Shabbos, which is even deeper than the man. So after explaining all of this, muven inyan shtei halechem sheb'Shabbos, we could now understand the deeper meaning of the Lechem Mishneh, the two loaves of bread, that there's an obligation, a rabbinic obligation to take on Shabbos. Like the Gemara says in Shabbos, that there's a mitzvah liftzoya, there's a mitzvah, that on the meals of Shabbos we take two loaves of bread, which we call Lechem Mishneh. And the reason we call it Lechem Mishneh, the term Lechem Mishneh means double, a double portion of bread, which comes from Parshas Beshalach, where it says that on Friday they went out, V'laktu Lechem Mishneh, they gathered a double portion of manna, a double portion, and they came to Moshe Rabbeinu surprised and shocked. What is going on? And Moshe said that tomorrow, by Yom HaShvi, the seventh day, there won't be man. And therefore, Eis Asher Tachinu, Eis Asher Tevashlu, Eis Asher Toifu, everything got to be done today in the first portion, of course, but also in the second portion. V'laktu Lechem Mishneh, and they gathered Lechem Mishneh. So therefore, as a zecher to the man, we don't eat one challah on Shabbos, we actually eat two challahs on Shabbos. The two challahs on Shabbos are what? For the poor double portion that came down. Now here you have a chayra klotz kasha. Why are we celebrating Shabbos by eating two loaves of bread? One loaf of bread was the Friday man, right? We don't ask these questions at this age. Huh?
Why do we need Lechem Mishneh in the morning?
Okay, so you mean Shabbos morning? Yeah. No, that's Mitzat Shabbos. Friday night is the same question. The man didn't come down Friday night. It came down Friday early morning. But the question is, why Lechem Mishneh? One lechem belonged to Friday. That was every day. The pshat is l'cha'ira. That itself you want to show that on Friday there was a double portion, so we're simply technically commemorating it, but when you think about it, it's not like the double portion was for Shabbos. For Shabbos there was an extra portion. There wasn't on Shabbos a double portion. Friday also gets breakfast. Friday deserves breakfast too.
He didn't have Friday night as two, because he ate up the first one on Friday.
That's practically speaking, in the midbar there was no Lechem Mishneh, because they already had to feed the family on Friday. So what were they left with Shabbos? One portion.
So we're really celebrating and connoting how Shabbos informs the week, and basically
yeah.
So there was no meal Friday night.
Bichlal, healthy people don't eat at night. Don't you know that?
It was gluten-free.
Once the sun sets, the body asks for you to also set.
The American Heart Association just came out talking with such a
Baruch
about the
Shekivanti.
dangers of nighttime. Imam just came out last
Baruch
night.
Shekivanti.
Wow.
You could see it almost. The sun sets. It almost asks of you to go into a different mode. But we in America, that's when we start eating. 10 o'clock at night, you come to a chas, a sheva brachas, and they start eating. And better even 1 o'clock in the morning. Yeah, that's when we start eating. Breakfast, lunch, who has to eat? But in the midbar, they lived organically. Okay, so v'acha kol zeh muven inyan shtei halechem sheb'Shabbos, and he's going to focus here on one fascinating detail. Al pi nigla tzarich la'niach zu al gabe zu. When you look in halachas of Lechem Mishnah, the system is you put one challah above another challah. What's called the elyon and the tachton. Now there's a question in Poskim which one you cut, right? Some cut the elyon, some cut the tachton. There's a lot of different minhagim in this. The top bread, there's also a question where in the bread do you cut? That's another question. Which bread and where in the bread you cut? Which part? The top, the bottom, the side. But the common denominator is one challah is above another challah. So that's why you'll see Shabbos tables and Lechem Mishnah pictures that are of course made before Shabbos. One challah will be tilted on top of the other challah, one challah is under the challah. That's al pi nigla, al pi halach. And yet, in Pri Eitz Chaim, Rabbi Chaim Vital records the custom of his teacher, the Arizal, that he would have dafke ze eitzel ze. The two Lechem Mishnahs were not above each other, but near each other. And not only that, pick up the two Lechem Mishnahs, that the two backs would hit each other, so basically what was facing you was the top of the challah, the bottom of the challah would be close to each other, right, so you wouldn't even see the bottom of the challah, you would only see what we call the panim of the challah, the face of the challah, when the challahs are both lying on the tray, whatever they're lying on, so then you just have two challahs near each other. But then also bring them close together equally, like so to speak, like two luchas, almost like two, close together, the back touching, and what you see is the front of the challah. So
the two bottoms.
The two bottoms.
That's what he did.
Yeah.
When making the bracha, we're talking about.
Yeah. But generally, the two challahs will lay near each other, not on top of each other. So
what's aleph of yud? Bechinas aleph of yud.
Or yasher. That's what we're going to do. So what's the Havana in this? So you'll say, okay, it's a different minhag. It's not pshat. Here, the Baal Tanya is going to show that sometimes, generally in Yiddishkeit, in small nuanced details, even though they're nuanced and they seem not so significant or pivotal, but they reflect sometimes cosmic truths. Now, in ancient times, that would be, maybe in previous years, it would be something of a little bit of a little something. It would be a little strange or difficult to understand. Today, we know how true that is. For example, it says Zois HaTorah Adam. So Chazal say the Torah can be compared to the human organism, and the human organism can be compared to the Torah. So the body consists of, say, approximately 50 trillion cells or more. So you understand how tiny a cell is. If you're in your body, there are 50 trillion cells. In each cell, you have what we call the code, the genetic code of the entire organism. Each cell in and of itself, in other words, reflects the totality of the organism, the DNA code that is embedded in each and every one of the 50 or more trillion cells has in it the computer program, the code of the entire body. That means all you need to have is one cell. And the one cell reflects everything. Zois HaTorah Adam. The same as in Torah. In Torah, when you get to the Oimek HaTorah, one tiny little cell doesn't seem central at all to anything. But nonetheless, it captures within it the entire organism. Of course, you have to be able to know how to look at the cell, how to decipher the cell, how to uncover the cell. And then, of course, you could see in one cell everything. So here you have a classic example for this. So discussion and Nigla and Kabbalah, there's different things that the Kabbalah would do one way, and the halachicists would do a different way. You have a lot of different things. This is how they do it al pi halach, and this is how it's done al pi Kabbalah. Tefillin chal hamayit, right? Tefillin chal hamayit. Okay, the Zohar is very against putting on tefillin chal hamayit. Very sharp words, right? In the world of Nigla, it's not so pashut. Right? There's plenty of Yidden, Yireim, or Shleimim who put on tefillin chalamayit. It was one thing in the days of the tremendous opposition to the early Hasidim and the Alter Rebbe especially. This was one thing they couldn't criticize him for because the Vilna Gaon also didn't put on tefillin chalamayit. So because he didn't put on tefillin chalamayit, so they couldn't. This was one thing they had to get unshapen after, because he also didn't put on tefillin chalamayit. Because he was a Zohar Jew, he was a Kabbalah Jew. Chaim Volozhin writes that he spent more time learning Kabbalah than learning Nigla. The Vilna Gaon, this is. He spent more time learning Kabbalah than learning Nigla. The Shas, Poskim, Halach, etc. It's very interesting. Student writes, Chaim Volozhin. So you have a situation where there's different views. Al pi nigla. So here you have one of them. How Lechem Mishneh should be. What he's going to show is that these are not just two separate views. They represent, like the DNA, this little cell captures very profound truth that has been articulated throughout this mimer.
So the clone is there.
And both are true. There's the world of Nigla, there's the world of Kolon. Both are equally true. This is not about a competition. This is about a perspective on reality. This is real and this is real. And each is real in its own context, in its own place, in its own time, etc.
So many realities. 2,000
Welcome.
Jews, you can have 2,000 minhagim. Each one represents
If it's a real minhag.
cosmic.
If it's a real minhag. What do they say? It's brought in Paiskim that minhag Yisrael Toirahu. Yeah? Taisvus says the Rajman. Minhag Yisrael Toirahu. It's also brought in Rishonim that minhag Oisi is Gehenna. You know that? Minhag is the same letters like Gehenna. So when do you look at a minhag and you say it's Torah? And when do you look at a minhag and you say it's Gehenna? So the literal interpretation, the sociological interpretation is it depends. If it's my minhag, it's Torah. If it's your minhag, it's Gehenna. If it's your wife's family's minhag, and it's Gehenna. If it's your own minhag, then it's of course Torah. That's on one level, yeah? On a deeper level, of course, the question of the nature of a minhag. In the name of calling something a minhag, sometimes people do stupid things and sometimes do oppressive things. It's a minhag. What's a minhag? It's stupidity. It's not a minhag. It's called abuse. Don't call it a minhag. You have to know, sometimes a minhag is Gehenna. Where is it rooted? Where did it develop? There's no hefkedus in Judaism. I decided I'm not a minhag because I'm in a bad mood, so I need another way to oppress my family. So now we have a new minhag. We have a new minhag in our house, so everybody could be miserable, Baruch Hashem. It's not enough that they were miserable Pesach, they have to be miserable Shavuos, Sukkot, every Shabbos, and if you could be Mosey every day, so now everybody is miserable, because miserable people thrive in misery. So you have to understand, that's what I'm saying, it's important to distinguish. But if it's a genuine minhag, a minhag is all Torah.
Question about the tzvil, isn't there a lot of that from the Buddha and
You follow the Balei Halacha.
yeah.
Right. So they asked Alter Rebbe this because he wrote a Shulchan Aruch. In the Shulchan Aruch, he kept it literally Shulchan Aruch. It's very fascinating how he did it. He completely remained consistent with the model of Shulchan Aruch, which is basically, it's Eastern Europe, so it's Ashkenazim, it's the Ramah. Ramah is the Pesach in Europe, in Krakow, and that's what he follows. Okay. He also wrote a Siddur. His Siddur, he put in instructions. It's not over there he follows Kabbalah. So somebody asked him, one of the Hasidim, what are we supposed to do? So he said, you follow the Siddur. So he said, but in the Shulchan Aruch you said that when the Kabbalah argues with Halacha, you follow the Halacha. He said, because in Shulchan Aruch that's what I wrote. But in the Siddur you follow Kabbalah. In the Shulchan Aruch I wrote that you don't follow Kabbalah because that's Shulchan Aruch. That's Halacha. And Halacha, you follow Halacha, not Kabbalah. But in Sifrei HaKabbalah, you'll say, follow the Kabbalah.
You pass going to sit the sukkah b'shmini the shulchan.
Yeah. But that's a Gemara.
Yes, right.
That's a Gemara, Hilchas.
So minhag Yisrael.
Shmini Atzeres. Yeah.
And how come the Vilna Gaon didn't come and end up the same like the Hasidim if you learn Kabbalah more than
What's the question?
He didn't learn Chassidus, he learned Kabbalah. So minhag Yisrael Torah is a halacha or a minhag?
Minhag Yisrael Torah is an expression of Rishonim, not to denigrate minhagim, not to look down at minhagim. Minhagim have very profound truth to them, very profound connection to them. There's even an expression in one of the Rishonim, minhag mevatel halacha. A minhag could be powerful. Again, you have to know what it means, what the context. Somebody once said, how do you know minhag mevatel halacha? Because the halacha is if you borrow money from somebody, you have to pay back. The minhag is that you don't pay back. The charaya, that minhag mevatel halacha, right? Okay. Keep chines nigla, because whenever you speak nigla, here he's speaking about nigla of Torah, but the concept of nigla, which means the revealed, he chines hishtalshalus, is always rooted in hishtalshalus, meaning in the hierarchy of existence. Chines or yashar, which is the light, direct light, the linear light. Or yashar means the light that, so to speak, flows down in a straight kav, from higher to lower, to lower, to lower, to lower. There's a hierarchy of creation. There's a hierarchy of existence. Just like there's chachma and bina and das and chesed and gvura, there's machshava, there's dibur, there's maisa, there's a father, there's a zayda, there's an elta zayda, there's an elta zayda. There's a process. There's Reshechem Sheftechem, there's Choyte Veitzecha V'Shayev Meimecha, there's Olam HaTzilus, there's Olam HaBriya, there's Olam HaYitzir, there's Olam HaSiyah, there's Medaber, there's Chai, there's Tzomeach, there's Doimim. The halachas that exist with people are not the halachas that exist with animals. The halachas that exist with animals are not the halachas that exist with Tzomeach. You can't compare Tzomeach to Doimim. Everything has its place and its value in the hierarchy, in the system called Hishtalshelus, which basically means the chain. Hishtalshelus literally means a chain, Shalshelis. The chain or the evolutionary process of creation from its highest point to its lowest point. And when I mean highest and lowest, I don't mean geographically or spatial, I mean highest and lowest in terms of sensing its source or not sensing its source. So when you place one chala on top of another chala, this basically represents how Ishtalshelus works. There's higher and there's lower. There's one on top and then there's one on bottom. This is the concept called in Jewish philosophy, the works of the Rambam constantly, Ilah and Olul. Ilah is the antecedent to the Olul, which is the Olul of the Ilah, the effect of the Ilah. And everything in our world follows that pattern of Ilah v'Olul. You want to plant a tree, the antecedent of this beautiful apple tree was seed. That seed is the Elyon, it's the cause, it's the mother, it's the father of the tree. That tree then becomes the antecedent for a new seed that is produced from the apple that grows on that tree. And then that seed will become the Ilah for yet a new tree. And every apple tree that we look at, we can go back, trace it back to the first apple trees.
It's cause and effect.
Cause and effect, Ilah v'Olul. The Ilah always precedes the Olul. The Olul follows the Ilah, whether it's in time or it's in concept. The Ilah is the Elyon and the Olul is the Tachtin. So the Rav is the Ilah, the Talmud is the Tachtin, the father is the Ilah, the mother is the Ilah, the child is the Olul, and so forth. The same is true spiritual realities. One is the source of the other. And that's generally the picture of Nigla Yiddishkeit. Yiddishkeit of Nigla works in a process of Elyon and Tachtin. There are priorities. There's higher, there's lower. There's always differentiations. Always differentiations. This is a time for this. This is a time for this. This is good. This is less good. This is bad. This is very good. This is exceptional. This is Yom Kippur. This is Erev Yom Kippur. This is a regular Wednesday. This is Shabbos. This is Yom Tif. And it has its category. This is a Talmud Chacham. This is not a Talmud. Everything works in terms of Ilah v'Olul. Just like in a body as well. The nigla of the body also operates on that level. There's an organism and there's a system and there's a hierarchy. And you're going to dethrone your brain and decide that the brain already did its tenure and it's time to retire the brain because the kidney wants to come to power. It's not going to look so geschmack probably. So therefore you have Ilah and Olul. This is called Or Yasher. Ubchines Nister, Ubchines Or Chaim. Nister introduces what's called Or Chaim. Or Chaim means the light that bounces back. Not the Or that goes down, the Or that comes back. Chaim means it rebounds. It rebounds. When you're playing racquetball, so then you shoot the ball, but then there's the momentum that's created from the way that the ball hits the wall, and it rebounds. That sometimes creates new dynamics in the game that don't exist initially. That's what's called the Ur that comes back, the Ur that's chayzer. It's the feedback, it's the echo. It's what returns to you from when the Ur hits, the makabel hits the recipient. That's not Or Yashar, which is the direct light that flows down. It's the Or Chayzer. So he says, Nister generally is associated with Or Chayzer. Aliyas Ha'oris. It's where the Oiris ascend, Liyas Oilis v'nechlolos betachlis ha'eskalalus b'bchinas makif ha'kloli kanal. A whole week the Oir goes down in an extroverted way from L'mayla Lamata to create the world. Kisheishis Yamim Asa Hashem Es Hashemayim V'Saretz. Took 6 days for God to create heaven and earth. Uvayoyim Hashvi, the 7th day, Shavas. All the energy now goes up. This is the Or Chaim. It's the Or that returns after you work. It's what comes back into you. So now the Or goes up and it becomes included in the ultimate inclusion in what we called Makif HaKloli, the collective encompassing reality that includes everything, but includes absolutely no differentiation even beyond Akudim. So Nister, which represents that Aliyas Ha'or, and over there it's a Makif HaKloli that everything becomes equal, Maila and Mata, Mitam Zet Tzarech Sheyiyu Zu B'tzad Zu Shteyen B'Shava. So therefore, it's not Nigla says this, Kabbalah says this. It's Tzarech. Mitzad this energy, it warrants that the two chalas have to be near each other. Why near each other? B'shava. The main thing is identical. Shemoidem al pchinas iskalalos amiti b'makif elyon. Because this represents the fact that both chalas are submerged truly in the ultimate makif, shemakif l'chol prote. Prote aishtalshalos, twice prote. It encompasses the details and the nuances and every last element, but b'shava. All equal. The ultimate equalizer. Kamei, because in his presence, Maila umata shavin, the highest and the lowest become identical. There's no Ila v'Olul anymore. The highest Ila and the lowest Olul are equal, on equal footing. V'dai l'mevin, and this will be enough to somebody who understands. And as you could say, and for somebody who doesn't understand, then probably even more won't be enough.
In terms of his use of the Lashon Prate, double, we can actually suggest something, I think, an interesting wrinkle, and that is that when we spoke about Akudim and Shiva, Kalim, Akudim, Klei Echad, so even in Akudim, which is in the world of Ishtalshalus, B'koach, there's 7 potential differentiations. But once the light comes down to the world, once the klal comes down to the prime, and then goes back up, when it hits the world, there's more than 7. We see billions and billions different differentiations. So when it goes back up to be nichlal, it's not the nichlal of 7 the way it started. It's nichlal of billions and billions because it's the or it's bouncing
coming back.
So prate is more than the 7.
Very good, beautiful. Yeah, it's much more prat. Parentheses, he says. V'ayin mashakasav lekaman b'dibur amaschel zocher v'shomer. Later in Yisro there'll be a maimer on zocher and shomer. It says on Shabbos. In Yisro it says remember Shabbos. In Veschanan 10 commandments it says shomer. So we say in L'chadoidi, what do we say? L'chadoidi l'kraskala zocher v'shomer b'dibur echad. So he says shehein zovin nukva. One represents masculine energy, one represents feminine energy. Zocher l'dchura, shomer l'nukva. Zocher is masculine, shomer is feminine. Vehein beis chalas the Lechem Mishneh. Those are the 2 chalas of Lechem Mishneh, Zocher and shomer. There's going to be some Kabbalistic words here, but we want to get to the point. Val pi seder ha'ishtalshalus. According to the evolution of creation, harei malchus mikabelas mizei rampin. Malchus, femininity, is a recipient of masculinity. V'hu l'mayla mimena b'madrega. And ze'er ampin, which are the midas, transcends malchus. V'zeu k'moishein ba'atzilis, but that's only in Atzilis. Femininity receives from masculinity. Avol mitzad atzmus ein soif baruch hu. But if you go to the essence of the ein soif, shneyen b'dibur echad nemru. There's no masculinity giving to femininity. Zocher v'shomer b'dibur echad nemru. Zocher and Shomer was spoken in one word. Shekoila l'shneim b'shomer. What do we care if Hashem said first Zocher and then Shomer? It's such a big thing you have to say it together. The Gemara asks in Parshas Yisroi, the Aseres HaDibros says Zocher is Yom HaShabbos. In Parshas Veschanan, Moshe repeats the 10 commandments, and from Zocher he changes it to Shomer. How can it be? What did it say in the 10 commandments? Did God say remember? Did he say Shomer? And so Chazal answer, Zocher v'Shomer b'dibur echad nemru ma she'eina oizin yechayla l'shmoya ve'eina peh yachal l'daber. He spoke them both in one utterance, together, one, like one word. I don't know how that means. Either you say Zocher, you say Shomer. It's 2 different words. It was said as one word together. Why was it so important to say Zocher and Shomer together? So that's what he's saying here. The Zocher and Shomer represent actually 2 different dimensions of reality. This is Zod, this is Malchus. In Atzilus, one is higher, but in Atzmos, L'gabei Atzmos, it's B'dibur Echad. V'zeu shal pianista tzarech li is beis chalus the Lechem Mishneh zu b'tzadzu. So the two chalus of Lechem Mishneh represents masculinity and femininity. So there is a world in which there is the differentiation and ilah v'olo. And then that's the world of Or Yasher. And then there's the world of Or Chaim, where when you go back to the ultimate klal, you have complete uniformity, complete hishtavos between all of the b'chinas and the madregas. And therefore, the two breads of the Lechem Mishneh are not anymore ilah v'olo, but rather they become completely one. Ata tofes et zeh?
What is mitzad atzmus? It's like higher than Atzilus.
Yeah, mitzad atzmus, that's what he's speaking about, the makif hakloli. Atzmus Ein Sof Baruch Hu is beyond. Atzilus is already the world of, right? Atzilus is already the world of tikkun. There's a whole system.
But according to him, Akudim is in Atzilus also according to this, because Akudim already has. He calls Akudim part of Seder Rishon.
Ein achanami, yeah. Ein achanami. This is even beyond Akudim, you're right. Now, this last piece is very brief, it's very concise. So it has to be deciphered. The point that the Balatanya is making is as follows. The two breads, basically the Lechem Mishneh of Shabbos, represent two paradigms of existence. And that's the Lechem Mishneh. One is a Friday food, and one is a Shabbosdika food. Now, in the Midbar, it happened to be that both of them were man. They were Lechem and Hashemayim. But let's remember, our Lechem Mishneh is not man. Our Lechem Mishneh is Lechem in Aretz. It's good bread that you buy in the bakery. Or your wife makes it, so maybe heavenly in one way. But in terms of practicality, it's still Lechem and Aretz, it's not man. And if I'm not mistaken, the challah that we eat has a little psoilus, no? Especially certain types of challahs, where they're mahader to have even more psoilus than anything else. So it's not mamish our Lechem and Hashemayim. But nonetheless, our Lechem Mishneh is trying to represent something. What is it representing? So there's two breads. One is the bread of the weekday. One is the bread that was given on Friday, but it was given for Shabbos. One bread was given for Friday. One lechem was given for Friday for Shabbos, so that's already a higher bread. So what does this represent in our world, the two Lechem Mishnahs? One lechem is Friday lechem, which is lechem in Aretz. The other lechem that we're introducing in the Lechem Mishneh is Lechem and Hashemayim, as best as we can celebrate Lechem and Hashemayim. It's the special staple of unique food, of heavenly food, of spiritual food, which came down in the Midbar, of course, for 40 years, but we don't have access to that. So we have the Lechem Mishneh. So one bread is representing Lechem in Aretz, and the second Lechem is representing Lechem in Hashemayim, which, as we know, one represents Toyu and Tikkun, or the birur of Toyu through Tikkun, put it more specifically. One is Toyu, that it finds its healing through Tikkun, and one is Akudim, where there's no differentiation, there's no psoilus, that's Lechem and Hashemayim. Now, which one goes on top of the other? Of course one goes on top of the other. How could it not go on top of the other? Lechem and Hashemayim must reign supreme over Lechem and Aretz. This is heaven, this is earth. Heaven is higher than earth. That's why we call it heaven. Lechem and Hashemayim trumps Lechem and Aretz. No pun intended. Lechem and Hashemayim reigns supreme. It has the dominance, it has the upper hand. This is Elyon, this is Tachton. Let's speak about it in spiritual terms, or psychological terms, apply it. What are the two paradigms in existence between these two things? One is the element of life where there is already diversity, where there is individuality, where the Ein Sof is not felt anymore. It's basically the world we know. Leviathan, right? Where it's basically you're trying to pave a road in the jungle of history, where there's I and there's you, and there's constant conflict, even conflict within the I. Never mind conflict between I and thou, because our world is based on fragmentation, compartmentalization, egotism. Every reality, every beast, every creature is completely self-contained. I have my ego, you got your ego. I am defensive for my stuff, you're defensive of your stuff. That's the paradigm we live in. It's the paradigm that allows for all conflict that begins the moment man is created. Adam and Chava are created, they have two children, and the first thing they do is they kill each other. This is the Bruchim Habayim into welcome to the human race. Welcome to the earthly planet, and the jungle ain't too much better. It's just genetic over there, it's instinctive. By us we have that element, that extra element of evil with maliciousness. with intent, with malacha tzricha leguf. I kill you for the sake of killing you. The lioness doesn't kill you for the sake of killing. He's hungry. He's looking for his own man. This is the best way he could feed himself. He doesn't have other access. Okay, but that's the gradations of human banality of what we're capable of. But this is a world where there is compartmentalization. The Ein Sof becomes eclipsed by absolute diversity, absolute detachment. We are detached from each other and we seek detachment. Just take any person sitting in this room and say, you work for me for the rest of your life and you're in my domain and in my Dalet Amis, and unless we are so dysfunctional that we don't realize we could be free, there's a part of us that revolts. The Maharal writes in Sefer Gvurus Hashem, he says, why do we celebrate Pesach? Mele, when the Jews left Egypt, they were free. The Maharal says, we're free. He lives in the 1500s in Prague. Every Pesach he's worried about another blood libel that's going to accuse Jews of murdering Christian children. This is called freedom. Why are we celebrating Pesach? And the Maharal says, Mele, when Jews were emancipated, but much of their history they were enslaved. Why are you celebrating Pesach? It's almost an irony, a joke. Jews in the Warsaw Ghetto are making a Seder. What are you making a Seder for? So the Maharal says that what happened by Yetzias Mitzrayim was not that they went free. What happened by Yetzias Mitzrayim was it created the concept of a free human being. And no enslavement subsequently can change that. Meaning, the sense of freedom doesn't have to do with my circumstances. Even if my circumstances may be challenging, the fact that I feel abhorrent about it, the fact that I revolt against it, even internally, that is because you're a free person. You don't want oppression. Even if you're oppressed, but you hate it, you're frustrated, that's a good thing. That means that's freedom. That's exercising your freedom. Huh? Sivlas Mitzrayim, yeah. The Chidush Yarim said.
This is basically Viktor Frankl a few years early.
Yeah. Voitseisi eschem mitachas sivlois Mitzrayim, yeah. Viktor Frankl, yeah. Viktor Frankl said it was the only thing he can own in Auschwitz, right? Attitude. Attitude. Yeah. Voitseisi eschem mitachas sivlois, the Chidush Yarim says, sivlois Mitzrayim is, I will liberate you from being soivel Mitzrayim. The beginning of exile starts when you tolerate. When you tolerate dysfunction, and that becomes the status quo. When you don't call a spade a spade. You may have been abused, but know what it is and know the evil of it so that you could fight it. Fight it for yourself and fight it for others, for loved ones. And that's freedom. So therefore, we live in a world where we seek to go out of the collective grasp into the individual grasp. The worst thing you can tell a teenager is, a mother could tell teenagers, you were in my womb and you will remain in my womb forever. Yes, mothers would crave that often. Sometimes they look at their 60-year-old babies and they still see them in their womb. And they treat them that way because you didn't really get separated yet. You think you're separate, but we know the truth. You're still mom's boy. But we know that is true. There's a part of us that is in our mother's womb forever. There are deep connections, and you have to acknowledge that. And as we learned, the more you acknowledge that, the more you can actually leave the womb, right? But this is the world in which we emerge. We emerge into differentiation. We emerge into identity. There's the deeper world, the world of Achdus, the world of unity, the world where there's no differentiation. Ultimately, that's the world of Akudim. Akudim b'kli echad. Why is there no differentiation? Because what's felt over there is a heichi timtza in the Ein Sof. It's a reflection of Ein Sof. So as we spoke many times, there's chesed, gvura, teferes, netzach. But what is really chesed? Chesed is another way that infinity expresses itself. Gvura is another way infinity expresses itself. Are they different? They're different, but they're completely one because Ein Sof is one. All the colors are expressing ultimately one truth. It's not about the color. It's about the transcendent truth that the individual color expresses. It's about the painting that's expressed through all of the various details. It's about the music that it's expressed through the entire symphony, through the entire orchestra. It's about life that's expressed through the various limbs of the organism. But all these metaphors are already in worlds of differentiation, because you could see differentiation in the body. In the world of Akudim, it's so subtle, but you don't see differentiation. So in the process of Lechem Mishnah, this is Lechem and Hashemayim, this is Lechem and Aretz. This is heavenly unity, and this is earthly fragmentation. This is a world of holistic oneness, and this is a world of compartmentalization. This is a world in which we're all connected, we're all attached, we're all one. There's no distinction. We're all part of the Ein Sof. We're all submerged in it. And this is the world of complete differentiation. Everything is differentiated. Everything seeks to differentiate. Right? So now you have, say, in a relationship, this is the tension always between the two. Are we one or are we different? Every husband and wife has to go through this process. Are we one or are we different? And the answer is, you're both. You're one and you're different. And here's the key. For you to be different successfully, you have to be able to be one. And when you're truly different, then you can also become one. And when you're truly one, you can also become different. The two are very deeply connected. But there's that, and the same is true with the Jewish people, the same is true with the world. There are the moments when you're lost in oneness, when you forfeit your identity. In Rav Kook's writings, this is the euphoric moment of his skalalus, where all the details and all the differentiations, he always writes about this very poetically, are forfeited and subsumed and submerged in the word. He loves the word klal, and the collective energy of the lu'um, of the national identity of the Jewish people. There was a poet who once wrote, "Shenechnasti liYerushalayim shechachti es shmi." She walked into Jerusalem after the 6-day war when it was liberated, and she said, "I forgot my name." That's how she described her feeling. She basically melted in 4,000 years of Jewish history. There's no me. There is basically a transcendent collective entity called Knesset Yisrael. Right? That's a process that's very, very profound, very deep. And in the evolution of the world, one infinitely precedes the other. So the Lechem Mishnah, this is Lechem in Haaretz, where there's always birurim. There's always the birur between the ego and the divine, between mindfulness and mindlessness, between eating like a beast or even lower than a beast and eating l'shem shemayim, between seeing the purpose of existence and seeing the purposeless of existence. That's basically the birur of Toihu. Working out your issues and aligning your own self with the divine self, but that's a process of birur. You have to work it out. In Akudim, there's no birur, there's no psoilus, there's complete achdus, there's complete oneness. That's the system of Nigla. That's the system of Nigla. This is the system of Judaism. This is the system. There's hierarchies, there's ishtalshalos, there's Maila and there's Mata. And we judge things based on that. We judge things based on Maila and Mata. And that's a real reality. In the world of Nigla. What do we mean by the world of Nigla? When we say Nigla, Nigla usually in these kinds means Nigla of Torah. Shas, Poiskim, Shnayas, Gemara, Shulchan Aruch, Mefarshim, Shal Setshuvas, the realm of Nigla of Torah. Kabbalah, you'll start talking about other Svarim, Torah and Nister. Here, obviously, he means Nigla and Nister in that sense, but in a much deeper sense. Nigla is basically the way the world emerges, the way reality is articulated, the way it's revealed. There's Ilah v'Allah. Everything is Ilah v'Allah. But then there's the reality of Nister. The reality of Nister doesn't compete with the reality of Nigla. The reality of Nister simply identifies a dimension that is not Benigla, it's Benister. And that reality always comes out not in Or Yashar, but in Or Chaim. In Or Yashar, it's what you're revealing, it's what you're sharing. What you're sharing is basically coming from the part of the self that is prepared to reveal itself. Or Chaim is the unexpected light that shocks you. The Gemara says, Mitalmid, I learned a lot from my teachers, more from my friends. Umitalmida yosim ekulam, the most from my students. What does that mean? He's teaching his students. How does he learn most from his students? That's Or Chaim. Or Chaim is unexpected. Or Chaim is, Baal Tanya says, sometimes you start speaking, you start saying and explaining something, and in the middle, because you're speaking to others, there's an Or Chaim that comes back, and it brings out new ideas that you could have never experienced if the information would have remained in you. If the information would have remained in you, so then there's how much I'm getting out there. But when I give out, the that comes back, Or Chaim, basically goes into a deeper place and brings forth, it arouses insights that I could not articulate before. That's the Or Chaim. That's a different type of Or. That's the that returns to you. Mitalmida yosim mikulam, that he can't, it's not what he prepared, it's not what he's going to express. It's something that happens in the Rav only as a result of the Talmidim. Ein melech beloyam. That's the Or Chaim. What's the in this sense? What's in the world of Nister? The world of Nister, you have a new reality. What's the reality? The reality is the way everything goes back up to its original source. Kivayachal, what he says here in Makif HaKlali, Makif HaPoshet, Koyach HaKlali, or as he puts it here, Atzmus Ein Sof Baruch Hu, in the ultimate core. Here, the two breads are not anymore higher and lower. It's no higher and lower anymore. Here, the two breads are completely equal. They're completely b'shava. Al pi nigla? No way. One is higher, one is lower. Al pi nister? They're b'shava. What makes lechem in haaretz and lechem in hashamayim b'shava? One is a world of complete unity, the obliteration of diversity. One is a world of complete diversity where they have all these problems of tohu, of chaos, of egotism, of a breakdown of the system. There's a lack of cohesion, a lack of unity, a world that doesn't work together, people that don't work together, disintegration and so forth, because ultimate detachment. And then Tikkun is trying to pick up the pieces and bring it together. But the pshat really is that the fact that akudim has to and this is very subtle, the fact that akudim has to stifle differentiation is already a betrayal of truth. Now, we have to say this with a lot of caution, because akudim is gilu ha'ein sof. It's not such a betrayal of truth. But the fact is that its format, its version of Ein Sof is one that seeks the unity of everything. It seeks the obliteration of self. That's the oneness, that's the truth it projects. Is that a truth? Of course it's a truth. But as we learn here, it's not, what do they say in court? The whole truth. The whole truth and nothing but the truth.
So are we going back to Akudim with our course, or are we going back
No, beyond Akudim, yeah. Beyond Akudim. And here we have something very subtly profound. And that is that Tohu, in some ways, is a rebellion against Akudim. Tohu is, they say in therapy that children articulate the subconscious emotions of parents that parents would never be able to articulate to themselves. Sometimes a woman is having certain feelings towards her husband that she doesn't know about. And her children will start talking about their father in a particular way. What they're expressing is mom's emotions. Or many different examples, dad's emotions, or different attitudes in life where they're picking up on energy that the parents can't pick up. But it's very true. And therefore you could learn who you are from your children, not b'derech hayashar, b'derech Or Chaim. That's Or Chaim. Or Chaim is a light that you could never pick up on your own. It's not what you give forth. I'm a nice guy. I love my husband. Really? Let's speak to your son. Lukus. Miriam Bas Bilga, the end of Sukkah. Lukus. So what happens here is that Tohu is basically a child of Akudim. So Tikkun is a good child. Tikkun is a child who goes through the system very well. He's that. Everyone has that boy. From 3 o'clock he already was learning his chumr. At 3 years old he was already learning. Never had a hard day with him. He was always ready for the bus 25 minutes before. You get a call once a year from the principal. Anachas. He comes home. Talmud HaShavua, Talmud HaChodesh, gets the prizes, and so on and so forth. Teenage, bar mitzvah. You almost don't notice him. He's so good, right? He works, balance, structure, machaya. You send him off. Bar mitzvah, yeshiva, shoin, marriage, abinyan adiyad, okay. Be'ezer Hashem. And then you have that child who, Baruch Hashem, keeps you up day and night for 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. Everything is toyu. There's nothing that works. There's no balance. There's no structure. There's no satisfaction. It's very, very intense. There's a lot of energy there. It's very easy to dismiss Toyu, to say we don't deal with Toyu. Our house is tikkun. But as the Alter Rebbe taught us, there's no such a thing. Toyu is the core of reality. Toyu is the gas of reality. This child is really bringing forth a real powerful energy that you need, that everybody needs. It's just distorted. He has no place for it. He has no context for it. But in many ways, what Toyu is sometimes doing is, it's the child who is revolting without knowing that he's revolting, subconsciously or consciously, against the truth of Akudim that says that infinity excludes differentiation. Because that is already a version of truth. This is one of the Alter Rebbe's great chidushim. That to turn the whole world into a klal is very close to truth. But really, it's also a distortion of truth. Because the real Ein Sof has no definition. Not even the definition that it has no definition. Even that definition, that it excludes diversity, that real truth means attachment versus detachment. Real truth means that there's no I. Real truth means that when we sense truth, there's no differentiation, there's no world. There's only cohesion. There's only infinity, which is the truth of Akudim. And yes, you and I know that in the world of Nigla, that is truth. That is truth. There's no conflict. There's no ego. There's simcha. There's serenity. There's oneness. And yet there's still a deeper truth. The deeper truth comes out in the world of Nister that basically says both breads are the same. Really? Lechem and Hashemayim and Lechem and Oretz became the same? Toyu and Tikkun and Akudim became the same. Here there's no Psoilus, here there's Psoilus. Here there's Ein Sof, here nobody knows the Ein Sof anymore. Everyone is busy figuring themselves out because they don't know who they are. If we would know who we are, we wouldn't have to figure ourselves out because we wouldn't be busy with ourselves because we would know that ourselves is a reflection of the divine. And yet, in a very interesting way, the struggle of Toyu and Tikkun is not just a struggle to undo the quantum leap of Akudim. It's also to undo Akudim. It's not just between Akudim and Toyu there's such a quantum leap and we're left with the pieces and we have to pick it up. It's also because Akudim itself is a story. It's part of a shtalshlus. It's part of... No, we don't mean over here that these are mistakes. This is all, of course, inherent to the fabric of existence to produce the reality that Hashem wants to produce and to create the whole drama of what we call existence and Avodas Hashem. But in this realm, the two breads are completely identical because as much as God wants unity, God wants diversity. And as much as you can find truth in unity, you can find the same truth in diversity because the ultimate truth is not defined by either. It transcends even Akudim. Even Akudim is the way it's akud bikli echad. It's a klal that takes all the pratim and turns it into a klal. In the ultimate source, you don't call it a source. A source already means you're the embryo, you're the mucker, you're the mother of all of the pratim, of all of the details. It's being beyond the mucker of details, and therefore, what happens there when we're dealing with that space, differentiation has the same truth as unity. The same truth as unity. Even though in the process, you can only recognize the truth if you understand the world of unity, because if you begin with the world of differentiation, ultimately you end up only with differentiation. So in other words, in the ultimate relationship between man and God, it's not that the relationship is basically that we get lost in the light of oneness, and there's no you. In the ultimate relationship, there's no you. That is a very enlightened path. That is a very enlightened pathos, where you get completely lost in the relationship, and there's no you. But there's something even deeper, and that is that the process of creation was that God wanted you. He wanted a relationship with you. So in many ways, we become, I'm going to say this in a dramatic way, but you should take it with a grain of salt. You're not only divine when you're divine also when you're being you. And in many ways, you're more divine then. Because creation was not about God wanting himself. He had himself before creation. Creation was about God wanting you. So in the process of you, that is where the real truth of the divine exists. In that process of differentiation, in that process of you. Now, From our perspective, from the perspective of Toyu, that can develop into the extreme individualism where what you might call secularism, where there's just an apathy to any transcendent truth. Here we're talking about the opposite. In the Or Chaim, which takes you back to the ultimate Atzmus. So here, the Klal and the Prat completely coexist, and the Klal doesn't stifle the Prat. Kamei, Maila, and Mata become Shavim. So automatically, how is it expressed in the halachas of Lechem Mishnah? Automatically, there's going to be complete uniformity between the two breads, to the point that the breads will be picked up, and their backs will be placed against each other, and you won't even be able to recognize the difference, so to speak, of the breads, because both breads are completely integrated. This is deeper than the man of Akudim. This is the concept of Shabbos that could unite the Lechem Mishnah. In the original Friday, there was the meal of Friday, and there was the meal of Shabbos. Our Lechem Mishnah is doing something else. Our Lechem Mishnah is trying to integrate two different experiences. The experience of Lechem in Haaretz and the experience of Lechem in Hashemayim. One is Elyon and Tachten, and one is complete oneness. And therefore, generally speaking, this is not just about Lechem Mishnah. If you think about this, you have here a paradigm, Bechlal, how Nigla and Nister work. I told you many times about Alter Rebbe, everything is with systems. Nigla and Nister is not just Vertlach of Nigla, Vertlach of Nister. It's two systems of thought. And both systems are very real systems. There's the system of how Nigla works it out, and that's a system. And you're not going to go away from that system, because that system is legitimate. You know, you can't take into consideration quantum mechanics when you're trying to put coffee into your styrofoam cup, because you're going to go crazy. Or when you're trying to play basketball, you can't take into consideration quantum mechanics because the ball is not even here. The ball is somewhere else. So therefore you think you got a basket, you didn't get any basket. Or when you're going skiing and you take into consideration quantum mechanics, when you're going up, you're going to be going down. So there is a world in which systems must reign supreme. There's also a world of Nister. The world of Nister is a different system. Which is true? In the world of Nigla, this is true. In the world of Nister, this is true. Which is true? Are all Jews equal or are all Jews not equal? Are all Jews equal or all Jews not equal? Huh?
Both.
Yeah. There's the world of Nigla, there's the world of Nister. Is physicality and spirituality of equal value? There's the world of Nigla, there's the world of Nister. The challenge is when the world of Nigla is completely divorced from the world of Nister, ultimately it lacks a certain profound truth and sophistication. I'll just give one interesting example that's very, very timely, constantly, and it was already timed in it. The issue, for example, of learning all day or working. This is one of the sugyas that a lot of younger lights struggle with. I get quite a lot of calls. This person is having a very hard time because he has to support his family, and he was told that ultimately the objective in life is to sit and learn a whole day. And his wife was told that he should marry a woman who is going to work and support the family. And now suddenly there's a couple of kids later, and the shver said, "Come on, go work." And this is for some people we get cynical about it in certain circles. But you have to know, for somebody, this is an existential crisis. This is very, very deep. And he goes to work because he has to, unless he's going to be seen as a hefke young, but he feels, a younger man called me, he's in Koilel for 18 years, and he says he feels like he feels filthy and dirty and lowly and a betrayer. He betrayed God, he betrayed Torah, he betrayed the truth, he betrayed the Nefesh HaChaim, he betrayed his yeshiva upbringing, he betrays Rosh Yeshiva, he betrayed the ultimate tachlis of the world, which is Torah. And of course, you could bring 100 Mamorei Chazal, actually you could bring 9,000 Mamorei Chazal, about Asem Teras Chekva, Malachtach Ara, and what a Talmud Chacham is, and what Limud Torah is, and we learned a Maimer, if you remember, before Shavuos, about Torah and mitzvahs and so forth. So Purim last year, Chayav and Ishlam Surim B'Purim, what Torah is, right?
Didn't our biggest chacham all have jobs? They worked in fields.
Really? Which Jewish history are you reading?
No, the
Which
Tanoim
books of Jewish
says-
history are you reading?
The Tanoim all had jobs, right?
Even the Gemara, that's
Okay, so tell this younger man. You want I should give him your number? You want I should give him your number? The Mechilta says, Sheishis Yamim Tavoid Zu Mitzvahs Aseh. So I told him, the same God who invented Torah says, Sheishis Vasvilsta, what do you want from yourself? Sheishis Yamim Tavoid Zu Mitzvahs. Gemara in Brachas Lamed Vav, Harbe Asuk Rashbi V'lo Yolsa B'Yadam. Harbe Asuk Rashbi said, learn, Harbe Asuk Rabbi Shmuel V'olsa B'Yadam. Shmuel said, you have to have both. So what do you want? You want to be better than Rabbi Shmuel? Rabbi Shmuel said, also B'Yadam. How many Tanoim and Amirayim, the Gemara says, like you said, had jobs? Why are you knocking yourself down? Why are you not? And what about a person who can't sit a whole day? A lot of people, by nature, it's not what they're made for. Some people are made for that. They're made to write, they're made to teach, they're made to, you get this goal. But a lot of people are different, yeah? They have different talents, different skills. Are these mistakes that almost God created all these skills, this creativity, this certain nature? It's like something they have to break and they have to crush. So that's where it's very important to understand that Judaism operates in two dimensions, and they're both equally true. In one dimension, we speak about hierarchy. You speak about the fact that you can't compare the time that you're learning or davening to the time that you're working. This is a time of kedusha, it's a time of chayil. This is a time of kol ma'asecha, and this is a time of dveikus. When you're sitting by a blat gemara, it's not like when you're sitting by a computer doing sales. It's two separate things. Halachically, it's two separate things. This is a mitzvah, this is not a mitzvah. I can't compare when I'm sleeping to when I'm davening, etc., etc. And that's very true, with all the ramifications. That's where one bread is on top of another bread. There's ilah v'alul, there's priorities, there's distinctions, there's definitions. In the world of Nister, suddenly we reveal a truth where they're starting to make the distinctions in a very, very deep place, and saying that this is ultimately higher than this. When you use the word that this is ultimately superior than this, you're not touching the emes Hashem la'olam. Ultimate truth is where God is. And where God is where He wants you to be. And where He wants you to be there's a moment He wants me to be subsumed in the klal, and there's a moment He wants me to be differentiated in the prat. There's a moment He summons me to be in one place. There's a moment He summons me, Daber el b'nei Yisrael v'Yisrael, to travel. There's the time He wants me to be in the Beis Medrash, and there's the time He wants me to be Kol Ma'asecha L'Shem Shamayim B'chol Derechecha De'eyu. And in His Atzmus, Mailo Mata become Shava. They become completely identical. Huh? There's Bechira everywhere. There's Bechira everywhere. But the point is that you reveal that there's an emes here, and mitzad that nekuda of the emes, then there's you don't have to make these distinctions. It's not like here you're Jewish and here you're not Jewish. When you're inside isolation, you're holy. And when you're out in the real world, now you compromise your holiness. That's the Lechem Mishnah Zal Gabe Zeh. In a deeper truth, Maloi Chalaretz Kvaydai. There's a word from the Baal Shem Tov, very, very, very powerful word. It says, the Gemara says in Brachas, Mishacharav Beis HaMikdash, Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Shacharav Beis HaMikdash, Ein Lo LaKadosh Baruch Hu Ba'ilami L'Dalad Amas Shel Halacha B'Lvad. The Beis HaMikdash was destroyed. Hashem has in His world only the 4 Amas of Halacha. So literally it means there was a Beis HaMikdash. Once there's no Beis HaMikdash, what are we left with? 4 cubits of halacha. So the Baal Shem Tov said, Pshat is as follows: Mishacharav Beis Hamikdash. You know how you know that there's a Churban Beis Hamikdash? You know what the symptom of Churban Beis Hamikdash is? That people think Ein Lo LaKadosh Baruch Hu Ba'ilami L'Dalad Amas Shel Halacha B'Lvad. The symptom of Churban Beis Hamikdash is that people believe that God is only in Dalad Amas Shel Halacha. The moment I go out into the world, it's all over. Now suddenly there's no divinity. That's Churban Beis HaMikdash. The real reality is Ein Oid Malvadai. Ein Oid Malvadai means that the truth of godliness could be seen and experienced everywhere. Yes, in the right context, with the right attitude, with the right perspective. Now, the Balatanya had a little bit of a difficult time with that Pirush because he was a big Bal Nigla. They called him the Litvak. So in Tanya, he reconciles the two. In Tanya, Perek Lamedalit, he teaches literally that Hashem is found in Dalet Amishal Allah. And when he says that when you find Hashem in Dalet Amishal Allah, then you could see that the whole world is unified. Which is really, of course, what the Baal Shem Tov meant. He didn't mean to say he meant to say, don't worship, don't make idols of anything. You see? Nister tells you don't turn anything into an idol. What's not an idol? An idol doesn't mean it's not holy. The Meshech Chachma writes, the Sameach writes that Moshe broke the Luchas. Why? Because the Jews started to see God as being an object. So you had to explain, the Luchas are not holy. We don't turn holiness into a model, into an idol. It could be holy, but an idol means this is it. This is a fixed idol. He had to break the luchas to show that truth is transcendent. So whenever you take something even holy, you could turn it into an idol. What do we mean an idol? An idol means that it's basically a certain definition of what God is, and that's it. It's not a holy thing, but it still becomes an idol. B'dakus. That's what the Meshech Chacham writes about the luchas. This is where God is. Don't turn me into a pesel. This doesn't mean the luchas are not holy, chas v'shalom. The luchas were holier than everything else. But it means don't start worshipping this one version, this one icon, and this becomes the full picture of reality. Somebody who says, there's nothing to Yiddishkeit, there's no value to a Jew unless he sits and learns all day. That's Hepech HaTorah. That's not Torah. That's not real Torah. Torah doesn't speak that way. Torah speaks that there's no dveikus. The dveikus of Torah is the deepest dveikus. Ain't soif. What do you mean there's no value? There's thousands of people who have to work. So there's no God over there. There's no value. And what about people who have a different type of IQ? What about people that have different types of bodies? So what's there? There's no God over there. It becomes a krumkeit. It becomes unfair. It's a betrayal of Torah. It turns Torah into a tool for arrogance, rather a tool for true oneness. When Torah is really not an idol, it's connected with real God, so then fakert. Then Torah itself tells you, Ein lo HaKadosh Baruch Hu ba'olamai, not only Dalet Amishal Allah, but real Torah redefines the entire experience of all aspects of life. We don't divorce anything from truth. When you divorce anything from truth, you're already stuck in the realm of Ishtalshalus. In the ultimate truth, there's nothing divorced from it. And therefore, don't divorce you also. Don't destroy individuality by saying, it's not true, it's Achdus. No. Achdus is version 1. What is it? Version 1.0. But then there's a deeper version, 2.0. 1.0 is 1, is Achdus. 2.0 is a deeper version. Why? 2 is not greater than 1. Depends how you look at it. If 2 is competing with the 1, then then 1 is of course greater than 2. But if 2 is really the 1 that is not defined by being 1, so then 2 is a deeper form of oneness. That's why Torah wasn't given in the first month, it wasn't given in the second month. The Gemara says in Shabbos it was given the third month. Because 1 represents Akudim. 2 represents Toyu, where there's Loinagu Kavod Zebazah. There's split. And 3 represents Tikkun, which is basically 2 coming together, not by destroying each other. Then you don't have 3, then you're back to 1. And that's really why Sivan is the month of marriage. What is really marriage? Should you be 1 or should you be 2? We're learning now about the mazalas. So the first 3 mazalas is Tle, Shor, Tu'umim. A sheep, a bull, and twins. What's the difference? Sheep. Anybody here is a sheep? No? Okay, I'm glad. Your wife told you not to answer? A sheep is basically a shefala. A shefala. Submissive, docile. What did somebody say? I always have the last 2 words in my house. Yes, dear. Whatever you want. What's a shor? Who don't start up with a bull who's angry. A shor shanagach. A shor can bull. Now, you see here what happens? We grow up. We're subservient. We're tle. And then at some point you say, enough. I'm not a sheep anymore. I rebel. Vayimlach vayamos. I have identity. I become a bull. What's the objective? Where do you remain? In the tlo or in the shor? So the answer is tu'umim. Tu'umim is very deep. The Shem Shmuel writes this in Sfira Soima. What's tu'umim? Tu'umim are twins. A twin is a very interesting phenomenon. When you look at a twin, you look at your twin brother or sister, you're not looking at yourself. You're looking at somebody else. But who do you see? You see yourself. You're looking at somebody else, but you see yourself. In other words, you learn that you could see yourself also in somebody else, through somebody else. It doesn't destroy the self when you create space for the other. On the contrary. You're looking at the other person, you're looking at a stranger, a different organism. What do you see? You see you. That's where the two could come together. Sure doesn't mean that I have no relationships anymore. That's where Tikkun has to speak to Toyu again. So Toyu is emes. Toyu is revolting against the lie that God has to look like God. You hear what I'm saying? Toyu revolts against the truth that God has to look like God. How do you know what God has to look like? Maybe God wants to look like you.
Then you can have Kabbalah Satorah.
Huh?
Then you can have
Then you can
Kabbalah
also tell
In the
you.
mikvah, we eat only lechem mishamayim.
Wow.
We're trying to capture both lechem mishamayim.
This class is brought to you by theyeshiva.net. Please help us continue the classes. Make even a small contribution at www.theyeshiva.net/donate.